And we're live. Nice. Dude, it's so nice to meet you. I ran across your page on Instagram and I was like, this dude takes some really nice pictures. And I
Appreciate
started
it. Brother.
reading then I started reading your story and I was like, dude, okay, this is interesting. Um, I mean, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody that's listening or that will listen about you and who you are.
Sure. So my name is Jeff Oliver. I'm a long distance hiker. In the hiking world, we all have aliases, trail names. My trail name is IBTAT, which people assume it's because I'm covered in ink, which is not the case. IBTAT stands for I've been to a town. It's a long story. Basically, it's from a line from the movie Jeremiah Johnson. It's I won't get into it right now, but that's basically where it comes from. So I go by IBTAT. On Instagram, I'm known as Saved by Mountains. And the whole Saved by Mountains things comes from my backstory of getting sober and all that stuff. So basically, I'm a half-ass amateur photographer and long-distance hiker, professional dirtbag, if you will. So yeah, I've done a lot of walking the last 5 years.
That's pretty awesome. I'm a I don't know, call it semi-professional like CrossFitter. So
Mhm.
I do the same thing. I kind of just go and I work out for hours on end. Like I'm in my gym right now in my gym owner's office. I was like, man, I don't have much work to do because I'm an engineer by trade. I do a lot of like project management and engineering technology validation, like renewable energy stuff up in Golden at the
Mhm.
Enro lab. and and I can say that I kind of substitute CrossFit for the bad things in life. And I don't know about you, but like if I didn't have this, I'd be overweight probably, or
Mhm.
just a really shitty version of myself. And God knows where, So I mean, is that kind of I mean, I kind of read your background, your bio, your story.
Mhm.
Why are you walking so far?
Well, it's very similar in that we all need an outlet. Everybody, I don't care what you do for a living, you need an outlet from that to
Mhm.
vent. Get your stress out. Just feel better about yourself personally. And hiking has done that for me. I'm still into the fitness thing. I got into CrossFit for like 6 months, but hiking has always been my thing. Really, as of 5 years ago, basically my backstory, I was an alcoholic for basically 15 years. I was running myself into the dirt.
Mhm.
It got so bad up to the point I quit. I was drinking at least a fifth a day. I mean, I was a functioning alcoholic. I never missed a day at work. I still had a social life, all that stuff. But it, I was going down that road. If I had kept it up, my body would have shut down for sure. I
Yeah.
lost an insane amount of weight. The last picture I looked at myself before I got sober, I mean, you can see my ribs. I wasn't eating, I was just drinking alcohol all day, every day. So when I finally decided to quit, I bought a mountain bike and a backpack, and I was living out in Montana at the time. I just started hoofing around the mountains out there. And that's kept me sober since. And basically, I haven't looked back since I got sober. And the whole long distance hiking thing is fairly new, in that I got sober in 2013. I didn't start through hiking until 2018. So I had some sobriety in my belt when I got to do that. But just being out in the woods, having that outlet to vent my frustrations in my own head, it's kept me sober. Hence my Instagram handle, Saved by Mountains. The mountains literally saved my life. And without that, I still have triggers to this day. Is when the alcohol, the mindset starts creeping up on me, especially when I spend too much time in town and not in the woods.
Yeah.
I know that if when those triggers start coming in my head, I need to get my ass out in the woods and start walking, and all that shit just melts away again. So.
Yeah. That's pretty that's pretty I'm gonna bring Steve in. That's pretty cool. Like you have this thing where you can kind of understand because you've been doing it so long, or you understand yourself, like self-awareness. You
Mhm.
understand that it gets to a certain point where you need to back yourself up, like pull yourself away. And I think all of us as human beings, or just as a society in general, we don't do a good enough job of pulling ourselves back when we see a problem kind of starting to arise. We go, oh, let's just keep pushing through this thing or keep going
Right.
past these barriers of comfort zones. But sometimes it's smart just to stop, take a breath, and back up.
For sure. Yep. Yeah. And like I said, those triggers still come up to this day, even though I'm 9 years sober. I know my body, I know my mind, I know how my mind works. And the way an alcoholic, at least for me anyway, when I think about taking a drink, I don't think about, damn, it'd be nice to go out to dinner and have a glass of wine with dinner, or go to a brewery and have a nice IPA or something. When I think about booze, I want to get a bottle and just down that bitch. It's to escape my own feelings.
Yeah.
Well, I know my brain works that way, which is why I can never pick up a single drink, because if I did that today, I'd be in rehab or dead within a month. You know what I mean? That's just how my brain works. And it's the whole addictive personality when it comes to, working out or going hiking. It's just I go full throttle whatever I do. So, I think I just switched that mindset into hiking, and rather just go on day hikes and be happy with that, I decided to walk across the whole fucking country. It's just, it's the addictive personality of
have
that.
you done that? Have you done that
So,
already?
I say across the country, not east to west or west to east. I've hiked across the country, south to north 3 times. So I've done what's called the Triple Crown of hiking, which is the 3 longest national scenic trails in the U.S. The Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail, which totals about 7,000 to 8,000 miles, depending on which routes you take. So 2018, 2019, and 2021, I did those 3. And last year I hiked across Scotland, which is actually a short jaunt for me. It was only like 550 miles. And this year I'm doing Sweden. August, September, I'm hiking in northern Sweden. So there's always one more trail to do. I'll just keep walking until my body shuts off pretty much. And then I'll switch to bike riding or something.
What pair of shoes do you wear?
I've worn Ultra. You know the brand Ultra? They make trail running shoes. Most through hikers, you'll see them wear trail running shoes. They don't wear the traditional boots like you see in the movies and stuff. Trail runners are nice because they're just so damn lightweight, and they dry out extremely fast. So, if you're huffing it on the AT, you get rained on a lot. In Scotland, forget about it. I got rained on every fucking day. If you get like a half a day of sunshine while you're out there huffing it, your shoes are dry just like that. And the only downside of using those shoes is they're not durable like boots. So a pair of trail runners, I can usually get either 400, 500 miles is when they start crapping out. So for example, on the CDT in 2021, I went through 6 pairs of trail runners on that trail over 6 months. So yeah, that's the only downside to them. You got to keep rebuying shoes. But in those like 7,000 to 8,000 miles I've hiked, I've had a total of 3 blisters. That's it. That's why I continue to wear Ultra. They're the Lone Peak brands. They're 0 drop shoes, and they allow I have wide feet, so they allow my toe to splay out. And then I've had 3 blisters in all those miles of walking. So I stick with them.
It's kind of like I guess cross trainers for CrossFit or like even weightlifting shoes. If they don't have open toe box for me,
Right.
if my feet get all crowded up like this,
Yeah.
I'm like unstable and everything, and I'll burn through shoes. I'm 230 pounds, man. I'm a big fella apparently.
It's been a while since I've worn cross trainers, and I just got into doing kettlebell training in the last 4 weeks. I've been doing it, so I went out and bought a new pair of Nanos, because I haven't worn the Nanos since. Well, shit, I did CrossFit back when I lived in North Carolina. This is probably right when I got sober. It's been a while, and it was the first time in all those years I put Nanos on, and I'm used to the toes splaying out. They're a little cramped for me, even though Nanos they're fairly wide as far as compared to like Nike Metcons or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm still getting used to them.
That's pretty awesome. I wonder how much how much planning goes into that for you. So when you say you're going to walk from the northern part of America down to the southern part of America, wherever that is, you're telling me all these trails I don't know anything about. I know a couple, like the Appalachian Trail. Yeah. I know the guy that went on Joe Rogan that actually did that one, like he ran it.
There's runners that try to called the FKT. It's a fast time. So these trail runners every year, and there was a guy out there trying to break the record when I hiked it. They're basically trail running 2,200 miles. I mean, they're doing over a marathon a day. Some of these guys are doing 2 marathons in a day. The guy, I can't remember his name. I met him somewhere in Virginia. He passed me, and I got bullshitting with him for like 5 minutes. I mean, he's trying to break a record, so he wasn't sitting and chit-chatting, but he was a nice dude. And I said, "What the hell are you doing out here, man?" He didn't have a backpack. All he had was a trail running vest with a couple water bottles and some snacks.
Just running.
Yeah, just running the trail. And basically, they have 2 different versions. They have an unsupported and a supported fastest known time. So he was a supported one, meaning they have a van, a crew following them up the trail in the van. So they'll have a designated area. They'll stop at a trailhead somewhere, meet me here. They basically massage their feet, shove a bunch of candy down their throat, take a 5-10 minute nap, and then they're off again. Unfortunately, that guy ended up getting trench foot up in Maine, I think. So he didn't quite make the record, but he was on pace to break the record. I can't even remember what the record is now. It's probably something like 44 days, 2,200 miles in 44 days, something like that.
Jesus, that's gross. I was looking up the guy that did. His name is Chris Gage, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I know there's a couple. I met one, the first female to break it. She held the record for a couple of years. I met her. She was doing a book signing. But yeah, it's just insanity to me. I mean, I was pushing, like, if you averaged out my whole hike, typically on all of these hikes, I average about 15 miles a day, which isn't ridiculous. And I was taking my sweet ass time, but it still took me 6 months, and that's 15 miles a day. Obviously, there's days where I think the biggest mile day I've ever done was 38 miles. I did 38 miles back-to-back days in Wyoming on the Continental Divide, only because it was flat as hell, so you could just speed walk it basically. And the water sources were so spread out. It was in the Great Basin of Wyoming. There isn't a single fucking bush out there to get shade, and it's 110 degrees. So basically, and the water sources are like 22 miles apart, and they got like dead animals and bugs floating in it. You're literally scraping shit away to get this water to filter and drink it.
Jesus.
So I woke up at like 3 a.m. I started hiking before sunrise. I had like 22 miles in before lunch. And then I basically I have and then wait till evening time and push another 10, 12 miles.
Did you use like a filter straw to do your water?
Life straws you're talking about?
Yeah.
Used one of those in the past, but for through hiking, I use what's called the Sawyer squeeze. Basically, I don't have it handy. I'd show you, but it's basically just a little filter about yay big, and it screws right into like a smart water bottle or a life water bottle. So basically, you just scoop the water with your water bottle, put that filter, screw it on, and you can drink straight from it. Or you can filter it into another clean water bottle, which is what I normally do. But yeah,
that's a lot of. I think you're going like 15 miles in a day. That's what. So in the Army, I was in the Army for a while, and we'd have to do 12 miles with a 65-pound ruck in 3 hours or less. It's pretty easy, if you just keep walking, keep moving. But I couldn't imagine doing that on repeat every day. Just keep, next day I got a 15-mile ruck coming. Let's keep going.
It's a grind. And the Appalachian Trail, there's some stupid statistic I've looked up before. I can't remember what it is, but the elevation change along the whole Appalachian Trail is like the equivalent of hiking from base camp 4 Mount Everest, or base camp in Mount Everest up to Camp 4 or whatever, like 30 something times. So it's the Appalachian Trail, especially, you're just up, down. It's a roller coaster all the way up the coast. So yeah, it's a grind. Your body definitely takes a toll towards the end. The Appalachian Trail, I only lost 5 pounds, which is shocking. On the Continental Divide Trail, I lost 35 pounds over the course of like 2,800 miles.
So we have a female here. Her name's Carly Goretzky, and she's done every 14er in Colorado, every one of them.
Yep.
And I looked at her, I was like, it took her 3 years. She got them all done though.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've only done one myself. I did what was it? What was the name of that? It was on the CDT is the only reason I did it. Grace Peak. I think it was like 14.2 or 14.3, something like that.
Yeah. That's it still blows my mind. I think the hardest thing I've done, like hiking wise, we took our mountain bikes and we rode up Pikes Peak. We went up to almost the peak of it, and then we dropped off into this back trail to go down. What is the name of it all? So it's just a Pikes Peak descent. You're doing a mountain bike. Yeah. And that was rough. Like that, I got done with that, and it took me a couple of days. I was still working out, but it took me a couple of days to get back to baseline normal.
Yeah. Yeah, it usually takes me about 3 weeks for my body to get back to normal after these hikes. It's just like anything else when you're out there. It's not like I train for these hikes. You start off gradual. You start doing like 10, 12 mile days. You let your body acclimate. And after like 3 weeks, or a month or so, you get what's called trail legs. And basically you feel superhuman. It's like the guys that go out mountaineering, out in Nepal or something. You go to base camp, and you kind of like your lungs get built up to this altitude. It's the same thing with the elevation change. Your legs gradually get used to it. So by the time you get up north, you're just hoofing up these mountains with like a 30-pound pack, like you're walking on flat ground. It's pretty cool. But then, like I said, after you get home from these hikes, I remember when I got home from the PCT, I rolled. It was like 2 weeks after the fact. like I normally just roll out of bed, to go to the bathroom, and I literally collapse on the floor. Like my joints are locked up and shut down. It takes a while because you're just grinding for 6 fucking months, day in, day out. It's rough.
You ever got rhabdo before?
Get what? What's that?
Rhabdomyosis.
What is it called?
Rhabdomyosis is essentially when your body
Oh,
starts using
muscle.
muscle as a fuel source, and then
Yeah,
you start
I
burning
don't.
ketones.
I don't think I have. It's very possible. I don't know what happened, man. Like I said on the CDT, I was very malnourished. You can only eat so many calories. Average through hikers burn like 6,000 calories a day. And there's just you can only carry so much food on your back. Generally we carry like 5 to 7 days of food, and then we have to go into town to resupply. And food weighs a shit ton. So
Yeah,
we're eating trash, basically candy bars and
it's
protein
calorie dense.
it's whatever you can get down your system to get up the next mountain, and you're just eating like a kindergartner out there. I was eating Nutella. I had a jar of Nutella. I carried the whole trail. Like I'd buy Nutella every time. I would literally just scoop that thing out of the jar whenever I took a break. I was just scooping it, calories and calories and calories, and I still lost like 30 pounds. It's just there's never enough food. And then on the CDT, after I lost so much weight, this is in 2021. COVID was still lingering pretty hard. I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I got COVID towards the end, and I ended up passing out at a campsite up in Montana, which was scary as shit because I'd already lost so much weight. I was malnourished, and then just putting my body through that much grind over months and months, it just finally gave up. I went into the closest town. I was 7 miles out from the town. I walked in there the next morning. I took 3 days off. I just laid up in a hotel bed, and I was just downing Pedialyte, just bottle after bottle after bottle, just to get enough energy to do the last stretch on the Continental Divide. It was rough.
If you had ever peed and it looked like Coca-Cola, then
Yeah.
yeah, you had rhabdo. You had rhabdo 100%.
Very possible. I mean, you just put your body through hell. I don't know what I had out there, but yeah, my urine was gnarly, and I was not good.
Yeah, you were not okay. I think that feeling is kind of like going to a flow state when you work out. You're working out and you essentially are moving, and there's no conscious effort to do it. It just kind of happens, and you start just moving faster and faster, and you're like, what's happening? And you get done, and you're like, oh, I could do that again. And lo and behold, it was probably like a 40-minute EMOM or something, and you're like, oh Jesus, that's the only thing I can tie. That kind of hiker's high. I'm gonna call it a hiker's high. That's what I'm gonna label it now. So like the thing that you get going up all those mountains is pretty crazy and wild. But like I remember going to ranger school down to Dahlonega in the mountains, mountain phase. I had a pre-ranger instructor that was at Fort Sill, short black guy. He was like, yeah, you guys are gonna get in the mountains and it's something crazy. He took us on the top of the artillery range. We had ran all the way like 10 miles. We ran 10 miles for PT. Ran up there, got to the top, watched the sun come up. And he was like, hey, come here real quick. We started talking. And it was the first time that he actually engaged with us. It was just a whole bunch of lieutenants sitting around, going, hey, what are we supposed to be doing now? Where are we supposed to be? What's next? What's next on the things? Like, well, you guys chose to do this really hard thing, go to ranger school. It's like the hardest part is mountain phase because you're walking all day long and you're not stopping. You're eating very little food because they give you an MRE for a whole squad of you guys or a team. I think it was a team for us. And you're essentially going up and down those mountains. And at some point, you don't feel your legs anymore. You're just walking. And you look around, it's spiritual. That's the only thing I could use to explain it. It's just a spiritual feeling. You're like, I am so small compared to all these things that are going on around me. And my problems really aren't that bad.
Yeah. Funny. I'm gonna elaborate on that because that's a good point. But those North Georgia mountains are no joke. I lived there for 2 years. So I have a funny story about ranger school, right? I was never in the military, but I have an experience with this. So on my through hike of the Appalachian Trail, you start at Springer Mountain, Georgia, right there in the North Mountains. That's where it starts. And I was unaware that the Rangers trained up there. Yep. So I'm through hiking, walking through the mountains in North Georgia, and all of a sudden I come up on this base camp, and it was a Ranger platoon that were training up there. I didn't know they were out there. I didn't know what was going on. You're like guys with machine guns and like, what the hell? And they're pointing these guns at me. I found out after the fact, and I don't know if this is true. This is what I was told, that the Rangers, they see all these through hikers. There's 5,000-6,000 people hiking this trail every year. It's free training right there. They use hikers as bait for training purposes so they can stalk people. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I got the hell out of there, found out after the fact. I went to go work at the first outfitter in Georgia on the Appalachian Trails, 30 miles in. And I was working with a guy that was planning on going to ranger school because he grew up in those mountains. And I just thought it was pretty cool. But going back to the spiritual thing, it's a big reason why I do it. I'm not a religious person, but whatever you want to call it, higher power, I don't know what it is. It's a spiritual feeling you get when you're out there in the woods, and that's what I get. And I think that helps me with my sobriety, because when I'm out there, there is something bigger than me that I don't know how to describe it. It's just a feeling that comes over me. I've gotten emotional many times on these trails where I'll just fall to my knees and start bawling my eyes out. I have no idea where it comes from. It's just being out there. And like you said, the big problems that you think you have in the real world, they're meaningless out there. Like you eat, sleep, walk, and shit. That is your whole life. That is it. And then you get back to the real world after these trails and you see people at a red light just like just cussing and flipping people off. It's like,
you're like, calm down.
You need to calm the fuck down. Life isn't that goddamn complicated. You need to go take a walk out in the woods and clear your fucking head. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I tell people all the time, you need to get back to what is basic, because I think it was, speaking of breaking down, it's a funny story. We were doing mountain phase and I was a fairly big guy when I started. I was 221 pounds when I checked into ranger school, and mountain phase is second evolution, right? We're walking up these mountains, and when I graduated ranger school, I was 187 pounds. I had lost 30 some odd pounds there. And I just remember very, very vividly, we got to the top of a mountain and they were like, all right, cool. You're going to set up your ORP and send your scout out to check on what the next, like, where your next checkpoint's going to be or whatever. And we just stopped and the sun came up. And I started looking towards the sun. It was me and another guy. I can't remember his name. I looked over to my left and I was like, man, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it's also the most peaceful thing I've ever had to do. And he looked at me and he was like, what do you mean? We're like kind of halfway in and out of it. And I was like, I have all these problems at home, but right here, nothing I do will change those problems, and none of those problems affect what is going on out here. And it's so nice. And then we just kind of sat there and I cried a little bit. He cried a little bit, and we still talk to this very day. His name's Julian. And we just kind of sit back and reflect, or I sit back and reflect on that. And I go, man, I need a little dose of that every week or every couple of days. And that's the reason why I come to the gym, because when I'm in there and I'm in the middle of something really hard, I think the workout I just did was 2 rounds of 100 double unders, 5 wall walks, 100 double unders, 5 wall walks, 100 double unders, 5 wall walks. And you rest 1-to-1. In the middle of that thing, the only thing I'm thinking about is, hey, let's just slow down our breathing. Let's just work on this one thing. And I couldn't pay you to be more peaceful at that point in time. Like, you couldn't pay me to be more peaceful. Like, it's not possible.
Yeah. It makes you focus exactly on where you are in that moment. And that's all that matters. I know a lot of times on these through hikes, you know, you want to give up a lot of times. You know, there's many times where I'm like, I'm not being forced to be out here. This is by choice. I can go home and go get a hotel bed and just get a hot tub and just lay back and relax. I don't have to do this shit. But there's something about that grind day in, day out that keeps you're breaking through barriers constantly, and your world becomes very, very small. And I talk about this a lot when I'm hiking through my YouTube videos. You're walking your world is 1/10 of a mile at a time, especially on the rough days. It's like the mind quits, and you hear SEALs talk about this all the time. The mind quits way before the body. It's 100% true. There's days that my body's like shutting down. I can't get up this mountain. What the fuck? I got 500 miles. I got to hike. So how the hell am I going to do this? Well,
quarter mile at a time.
I'll look ahead on the trail and I'll say, well, there's a fucking tree 100 yards from here. I can see it. I can walk to that goddamn tree. It's only 100 yards. I've been walking for thousands. What's 100 yards? So I'll walk to that tree. I'll sit down underneath that tree. I'll take a break. All right. I made it. I didn't think I could, but here I am. Let's look at the next. So there's a see the horizon. There's that peak right there. It's maybe a day's walk. I can walk another fucking day. You just keep doing small victories like that day in, day out, and eventually you're at the Canadian border. It's with anything else. Working out, it doesn't matter. You have to make your world as small as possible when you're in those tough times to push through them.
Yeah. I had an instructor at Ranger School. He would tell me I would get really upset often. I would get not upset. I would get like really mad at myself when I would fail something. It could be something really, really small. And he was like, Ranger, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, man, or I'm like, Sergeant, da da da, like this seems impossible in my head. And he's like, hey, has anyone ever told you take everything one task at a time?
Mhm.
And he's like, even in that task, break it down to subtasks. He's like, you know how to plan. You've been in the army for, 8 years now.
Mhm.
You can never do an operation. You can never do a thing by trying to eat the whole elephant at once. He's like, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, little
Mhm.
bitty pieces, and you'll eventually get there. And I think that we all kind of miss it from time to time. We all kind of get deviated from what's really important, and a lot of people say, "Oh, trust the process." It that makes a lot of sense. It does, unless you don't know what the process really is.
Yeah, exactly. It's too easy to look at the big picture and say, yeah, I'm right here and the finish line's way the hell down there. Like, how am I gonna get there? It sounds easy on paper, like, yeah, just do one day at a time. Same thing with quitting drinking, just one day at a time, one day at a time. As simple as it sounds, it's what's worked for me and works for a lot of other people too. It's just you can't look at the big picture and say, damn, my life sucks right now. I'm fat, I'm overweight, I'm eating shitty. Well, what can you do today? Can you stop drinking soda? Can you go get a bottle of water instead? Okay, well there's a beginning. You have to do little things like that. It is
Yeah,
part of the process, and when you're in the process, you don't always see that. You're only looking at the big picture. You gotta throw that big picture, keep it in the back of your mind, but you can't concentrate on that. You have to trust these little victories to get you to the next day, the next workout, the next mile of the trail, whatever it is.
true, true. Have you ever been on a trail and like near death experience? Like anything crazy like that ever happened?
Yeah, I've had one major one that comes to mind. I'm sure there was little moments here and there looking back that it could have got real shady real fast. The
Hmm.
one that sticks out in my mind, I have the scar. You aren't gonna be able to see it, but this tattoo is all jacked up. But basically, I think it's on my Instagram story or something like that. But it was in Colorado on the Continental Divide Trail, and it was in the San Juan Range. It's very snowy. I was going through there in like June, still mountains of snow as far
A
as
lot
like
of elk out there, though.
a lot of elk out there. But so basically, you're going up these peaks, and you're going over the passes, right? You have to do these passes early in the morning when the ice and snow is still hard before the sun comes up. Once the sun comes up and the sun hits the snow, it starts melting the ice and it becomes slippery as hell, and you're post hauling
Slushes.
this shit. So you basically get up before sunrise, you get up over the pass, which I did this particular day. So I'm sitting at the top of this pass, just looking at Snow Peak Mountains as far as I can see. It's absolutely beautiful. It's probably like 7:30 in the morning, something like that. Sun's just starting to come up, and to get down these passes, a lot of people do glissading. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically, you've got an ice axe, right? You sit on your ass, and there's a chute you can see where people have gone down before. So basically, you use your ice axe as a rudder. You sit on your ass and you slide down the mountain using your ice axe as a kind of a gauge as far as speed and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Well, generally, you do this this is in the afternoons. You typically do this because the snow is softer and you're going down gradual speed. I did this at fucking 7:30 in the morning when it was basically an ice chute, right? I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I've done this. I've done plenty of glissades in my life, and it didn't register in my head like I'm about to slide down a fucking mountain on ice. This is stupid. And I figured I'll just get down the mountain real fast. So stuck my ice axe in the ground and I took off. No matter how much I dug that ice axe in, I cannot slow down. I was in this ice chute, probably just the width of my body. There was another group of hikers that were down like halfway down the mountain, and they didn't realize I was up there. They didn't know I was about to do it. And they hear just me going down, screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm topping out like 35 miles an hour down this fucking mountain. The only thing that stopped me was a boulder that was in the middle of the ice chute, halfway down the mountain. I'd gone down there probably 300, 400 feet, sliding down, and I was grinding my knuckles the whole time down the ice as I was going. And you'll have to check the video on my Instagram, but basically, this whole layer of skin was completely gone. This finger was all jacked up, I was bleeding like a stuck pig. And the shittiest part about it was I was 4 days from the next town. Luckily,
What?
I'm bleeding like a stuck pig. I didn't have any medical. I'm notorious for not carrying any medical shit. I carry like a Band-Aid, and that's about it. I never use them. It was just stupid, but I didn't have anything to wrap it up. I had a dirty bandana. I wrapped around there. Luckily, I met another hiker later in the day that was actually a paramedic. he was out there through hiking. He had all kinds of fucking medical stuff. So he wrapped me up with gauze and shit. And basically, I just cleaned it every day until I got to the next town. Get all the dirt and grime out of there. It got infected and it never really healed until I got on the trail. But that was scary shit. And the scariest part about it after the fact, I found out there was 2 more hikers a week after I went down that same chute. They did the same thing I did. They both broke their legs. The one girl had broke both of her legs and had to be airlifted out of the San Juans because she was just, you're out there in the middle of fucking nowhere. I can't remember what happened to the other guy, but I know he had to be airlifted too. So looking back, yeah, my life could have ended real fucking quick.
Which video is it on YouTube? I'm on your channel now. Which video is it?
I think I can't remember what I titled it. If you go to the playlist for my Continental Divide hike through the San Juans, I probably titled it full send. I think I titled it Full Send or Welcome to Colorado or something to that effect. I think the thumbnail is my hand all bloodied up is the thumbnail. And I had my camera going the whole time, which is hilarious. So you see me going down this ice chute first person.
That's wild. I'm trying to find it now. Oh, you have one with your foot, with the guy's foot. I'm gonna screen share it so you can see if we can find it.
Sure. So go to this Continental Divide playlist on my YouTube channel.
Continental Divide list on YouTube. Okay. Yeah.
Let me see if I can let's see if I can pull it up here. I'll try to find it for you.
So it's CDT, right?
Continental Divide. Yeah, I don't know the playlist.
Is my microphone still making noise?
Yep. When you drag it, it makes a noise.
So
drag it on what?
So the beginning is all New Mexico. Scroll down a ways until I get to Colorado. This is all New Mexico.
Oh wow, it's long.
Oh yeah, there's hundreds of videos. I film every day out there. Yeah, keep scrolling down a ways. Silverton. So I'm in Colorado now. Climb. I think I'm past the San Juans. I think you went too far.
Too far? Okay.
Go back to like the 30s, something like that, probably. There we go. Now I'm in the snow. Okay. Right there. See my hand all bandaged up?
Yeah.
Full send. That's what I did call it.
Let's see.
It'll probably be towards the beginning of the video because, like I said, it was in the morning when I did
it. Question: did you see your light flash before your eyes?
I don't know what the hell was going on. My mind went blank when I was going down that mountain.
That was your Nutella. There it is, right there.
It's always handy, yeah.
Let's see if we can find this.
Yeah, fast forward a little bit until I get going. So you can see the dark. Okay, so this is sun's rising. Let's see. It's got to be somewhere around there. You can see how much snow's up there. This is on the San Juan Mountains in Colorado. You're basically on snowshoes or micro spikes the whole time up above 10,000 feet.
Oh, here we go. I think this is you sliding.
This has got to be it right here, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're crazy.
I had water bottles. Shit was flying out of my backpack the whole way down.
Now, did it hit you once you got to the bottom? Did it follow you down?
No, I had to hook back up the mountain probably another 50, 100 feet to grab my shit.
Jesus, man. Is there someone else out there with you? Is that another person?
The other crew that was halfway down the mountain.
What else did I lose?
I said, what else did I lose?
I didn't even know I was bleeding at this point. It wasn't until I got up and they're like, dude, look at your hand. So that was just adrenaline was pumping.
Infamous last words. Hey, dude, look at your hand. Look at this. Look what you did.
Thanks, man.
Let's see. Here it is right here. We got your hand. Good Lord, dude.
Oh, shit.
That, my friends, is a result of a really fucking shitty glissade. These fuckers were down below to pick up my shit, and not one of them stepped in my way and tried to stop my fucking ass. I was down there.
Oh, memories.
I wouldn't want to be the one that has to join you on that slide.
Could have been a lot worse, man. I got lucky there.
That was you got really lucky. That is no, I'm not doing that. I've done a lot of shitty things. I've jumped out of a lot of perfectly good aircraft, but I'm not sliding down a mountain, man. That's
I'll tell you the scariest part. And the passes, going over the passes is very uncomfortable, but usually you're doing it with a crew. I hike solo until I have to go the most dangerous sections. I'll get in with a crew. I'll find somebody out there and go with them. The scariest part is the river crossings on these trails. The Sierra Nevada in California on the PCT, I did it on a very high snow year. The Sierra were like 300% above average in 2019, the year I did it. And I went through the Sierra in June. So by the time June hits, there's still a shit ton of snow up there, but it's starting to melt. And these rivers are raising and raising and raising. And you have to cross these damn rivers. After you go over those passes, you go down into the valley and you have to cross multiple rivers. And people get killed every year, get washed away. They've tried building bridges across some of these rivers, but the current is so strong they just get washed away. So you're reliant on going hand in hand with a partner and walking one step at a time across these rivers. That's the scariest time I've ever had on these trails.
That's still I've done a lot of land nav and done stuff like that and done a lot of dangerous shit, man. But that, I don't know. What about bears? I have a question. Bears.
Bears. So the people, I guess you ask the normal questions all the time. Like, do you carry a gun out there? Are you scared of the animals? Are you scared of the bears and the mountain lions and all this stuff? Believe it or not, the thing I'm scared most of when I'm out there is other people. Animals, I understand. I've spent enough time in the woods now. I've been around grizzlies and black bears and everything else, moose. I understand them. I know to look for the signs and stay the hell away from the most part. People are very unpredictable, and I've met some sketchy ass people out there too. But bears, black bears, especially on the East Coast, I call them big raccoons. They're just out there scavenging for food, right? I don't think there's maybe been 2 confirmed killings by a black bear on the Appalachian Trail, because sometimes you get a mother and her cubs, and she's going to keep cubs to the end of fucking time. That one will attack. Grizzlies are a different story. I carry bear spray when I'm in grizzly country, Wyoming, Montana, and just have bear spray on the ready. But I've never had a close call with a grizzly. Moose scare me more than grizzly, believe it or not. Moose can be just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than a grizzly bear during the rut. They will charge your ass, and I saw a shit ton through Colorado. Sometimes they'd be right in the middle of the trail, and there's not much shit. You just got to wait and let them move along, because when they charge you out there in the middle of nowhere, you're fucked. So
I've had a moose encounter while I was elk hunting this year. It was late September, like last week of September roundabout. Me and my neighbor Andrew were up, and we were in where is it? It's right south of Divide, the national forest. I can't remember where it is. Pike National Forest, I think. And yeah, we ran into 2 mises. Call them mises. Went over there, and we saw one about from here, I think about 50 meters, and we stopped. And we were like, okay, we need to just leave this thing alone, because you think they're not that big until you see it up close, and it's massive. Yeah. They are huge.
At what point did you think that a moose was not big?
No. I knew it was big.
A baby moose is the size of your car, and that's an SUV.
It is the height of me. I'm 6 feet tall. It's like, why does that exist?
Ken, that's where its nuts fall to. Is 6 feet tall.
During the rut, that's like 1,200 pounds of sexual frustration right there. That's why you don't fuck with those things during the rut. There's plenty of videos you can look up on YouTube of bull moose charging guys. It's insane.
Especially if they have antlers, you're fucked.
Yeah, I got a funny story. This didn't happen to me personally, but a friend of mine. Well, I say a friend. I know him as a hiker. His name is, he goes by the name Legend. But he's a fastest hiker. He's got multiple records broken on the Arizona Trail, PCT, all these long trails. He just basically trail runs them. Anyway, when he was on the Continental Divide Trail through Colorado, he wanted to pick up a moose shed that he found to take home as a souvenir. So he saw these antlers sitting behind, coming up from these bushes. He thought it was just a shed. He went over there and tried to lift it up. It was attached to the fucking moose. This thing barreled up and went after him.
That's a series of terrible decisions. Like, I don't know. That's
I don't want
Have
to
you
see
have you seen the video from, I think it's Littleton, Colorado, where a guy, he came outside his front porch, and next to his brand new truck was two moose like getting after it, and they just plowed into each other, and then they couldn't push one another backwards or forwards, right? Nobody was winning, so they just started going sideways.
Yeah.
And they just pushed each other into the side of his brand new truck. Just you see the windows smash out, and then the truck comes off two wheels.
Yeah.
And then slowly gets lowered back down as they would start to walk away.
Yeah.
I was like,
animals, man. I've never seen that video.
You thought a moose was small?
They can stand. I mean, a bull moose, a full-grown bull moose, can stand like 10 foot tall with the antlers. I mean, they're massive. On the Appalachian Trail, I only saw one up in Maine, but you can see their tracks. They walk right down the trail. You see them walking right down the Appalachian Trail.
Now, did you get to be around any buffalo on any of these trails?
No, unfortunately not. You do go through Yellowstone on the Continental Divide, but you're on the other side of the park. Typically, the bison hang out on the other side of the park. I was on the west side of it, and the bison usually are on the east side. I could have taken a ride. I spent a day in Yellowstone at Old Faithful. I could have hitched over to the other side of the park and checked them out. I have seen bison before when I lived in Montana. I've driven through. There's a Blackfoot reservation up there in northwest Montana, basically a sanctuary, and I've seen them up close, but not as I was hiking.
So you know where he was in relation to the Yellowstone? Was actually closer to where they filmed the TV show Yellowstone.
I don't know. I've never actually seen that show.
You haven't. That's interesting. You should definitely watch that. But on the opposite in the show, on the opposite side, the western side of the park, basically it encompasses a whole side, like north all the way to like southwest of the park is just one man's ranch in that show. But it's called, the place where they actually film is called Chief Joseph Ranch.
I've never heard of it.
It's a real place.
Okay.
And that one, I think, whatchamacallit, nowhere near the actual size of like what the TV show depicts, but they said it was somewhere around like 1/8 of the size of the actual Yellowstone National Park.
Yellowstone's massive, man. I want to go back and explore that park some more. Consider getting seasonal work there. Being a wildlife photographer, Yellowstone is like the cream of the crop when it comes to wildlife photography. Out here in Rocky Mountain National Park, we got, all I've been able to photograph this winter really, because the elk have gone lower in elevation. I'm up here at about above 8,000. They all go down. You can see them hang out in town in Estes, but that's a couple 1,000 foot lower. So I got coyotes around here. There are mountain lion tracks occasionally pop up, bobcats and things like that. But Yellowstone's where it's at if you want to photograph moose, bison, that kind of stuff.
Have you gotten to have a? No, go ahead.
How do you navigate through all this? You like compass and map, right?
No, so that's an interesting question.
He has an Apple Watch, bro. Can't you see that?
I don't use this when I hike, but so I would say 6 years ago, you probably needed it. It was a good idea to know how to read a compass and map, especially on the Continental Divide Trail. The Continental Divide Trail is the hardest to navigate out of all three that I've done, I'd say, only because it's not even finished yet. There's a lot of dirt road walking on that trail. You're going through a lot of private property too, but 6 years ago, you probably needed a map and compass to navigate certain sections of that trail. Nowadays, with technology, we are extremely spoiled. We all use, I don't say all, but the majority of thru hikers use an app called, it used to be called Gut Hook. Now it's called Far Out Guide. Basically, it's a GPS map you can use without cell service. It's an interactive map, shows you where it's at, and it shows you a red or a blue line of where the actual trail is. So you can't deviate from the trail. It's easy. It's idiot proof. And the beauty of this app is it's very there's a social aspect to it, meaning there's icons on the map, right? So like a water source or a shelter or something like that. You'll click that icon, and there will be a comment section below that icon saying, so for example, I'm hiking through Southern California and it's a dry year, and this water source is like 5 miles off the trail. That's exaggerating. You're probably a mile off the trail, but if you're like, you don't want to walk a mile and back off the trail only to find out that water source was dried up. So you can read the comments from the day before. Some hiker went a mile off trail, found out, hey, this water source is flowing. you're hurting for water, go ahead and hoof it a mile off trail to go get the water. So that's what we use. There's a hook app for all the national scenic trails. I wasn't able to use that in Scotland. I used Gaia GPS. But you just download the GPX tracks beforehand. You can put it on a watch. I don't use this. I use my phone, or I have a little Garmin Mini I use for navigational purposes. But for the most part, trails like the Pacific Crest Trail and Appalachian are very easy to navigate.
Jeez.
So when you did the Appalachian Trail, did you do that from Maine down, or did you do that from down up?
Down up. Started in Springer Mountain, Georgia, and then it finishes at Mount Katahdin, Maine. Up there in Baxter State Park. I've done all these trails south to north. There's something I love about being up in the northern part of the U.S., especially during the fall and September, early October. The colors up there, I absolutely love it. And it's just more epic to me. I think finishing in the north, I've got caught in snow a couple of these trails towards the end. So finishing in the desert, either in New Mexico or Southern California, is not as epic in my mind. So I always go south to north. It's got me in trouble especially on the PCT. If you go watch those videos, winter came early that year in 2019. So you literally finish at the Canadian border up in Washington State, go through the Northern Cascade Range, and winter came. I think I rolled through there like the first or second week of September, and I got caught in a snowstorm. I had an ice beard down to here, and this is like 160 miles to the border. So basically, it was post-hauling through snow, sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures for 160 miles. It's rough. So you kind of gotta keep that in the back of your mind that you gotta get to Canada before winter hits, or else it becomes a mountaineering trip at that point.
So, I'll comment. The falls in New England are by far the greatest thing ever. Growing up in Connecticut, I don't think that there's honestly anything you can beat when all of those trees are orange, and as far as the eyes can see, and it's just like rolling hills.
That's why. Yep.
I have no mountain. There's nothing super special, but the rolling hills when you get a good sight, it's perfect. Second, I want to ask your pack, because you're talking going from Georgia to Maine and then all the way up to like Washington State. You're saying it's snowing. What size backpack or pack do you use? And then if you had to come out with 5 things for any like serious long hike, right? Obviously day and night. What are the top 5 things that you would bring?
Sure. So I've used basically the same pack on all these long distance hikes. Not the same exact pack. They break down. I have to replace them every year. But I use a 55-liter backpack from a company out of Maine called Hyperlight Mountain Gear. It's a very minimalistic pack. It's a roll top bag. So most people see the Osprey packs. They're familiar with all the bells and whistles hanging off them. Fuck all that shit. I want to keep it as basic as possible. The fewer things that are on there to break, the better it is for me. So the pack is very lightweight. It's a roll top, and it's basically got an outer mesh pocket and a couple head belt pockets, and there's just one big tube. So 55 liters is more than enough for me. I could probably get away with a 40-liter backpack, but because I'm a YouTube vlogger and I film these hikes, I carry a lot of camera gear, more than most people are out there with a cell phone. I'm carrying a mirrorless camera on like 3 lenses and a drone and iPad to edit video and everything else. So my camera gear alone weighs like 12 pounds on top of the normal gear weight. You're weighing in about like a 15-pound base weight. And then you have food on top of that. So all said and done for like a 5-day stretch for me, going town to town, I'm carrying about 45 pounds with all my gear and 5 days of food, which isn't ridiculous. But the other gear other than my camera gear has to be as simple as possible. I carry the very basics. So I carry all the ultralight stuff, down gear. If I had to choose 5 that I have to carry, I have a coffee addiction out there. My stove and my cook pot, I put them in one. I have to have coffee every morning. I can't function on that shit without that shit. So a little backpacking stove and a titanium cup. That would be number 1. A good pair of trail runners, because if your feet are fucked, you're not doing any walking. I don't care how strong you are, how mentally tough you are. If your feet are jacked, and you can probably vouch for this in the military, if your feet are jacked, you're screwed. So a good pair of shoes that fit good and you can push miles in. Aside from that, depending on what time of the year you're hiking, your sleeping bag, because you look forward after grinding 20 miles in a day to going in your tent and getting a good night's sleep, because sleep is just as important as the physical throughout the day. You have to recover from all this shit. So a good sleeping pad and a sleeping bag to keep you warm at night. Beyond that, a water filter. You know, if you get, I've never had Giardia, thankfully, but I know plenty of people that have. If you're shitting sideways for 3 days and you're dehydrated from all that shitting, you're screwed. So you have to get a water filter, or some people carry tablets, but water filters are they're easy to use. That's why I use them. What's that? 4 things. One more I'd probably say. Okay, there's one it depends on what trail you're on, but sunglasses. So like I said, the Appalachian Trail, you're under what's called the green tunnel. You don't have a lot of sun exposure. Sunglasses out the window. But I will say, when you need sunglasses, you need sunglasses. For example, when you're going up in the San Juans through snow, or in the Sierra in snow blindness is no joke. And I went up over a pass called Mather Pass in the Sierra Nevada. And I ended up I lost my sunglasses in the dark. I stepped on and broke them. The next pass, the very next day, you have to go over, it's John Deere Pass. Basically, there's a snow field of 3 miles before and after the pass. It's just nothing but white out snow. And I had broken my sunglasses the day before. I was hiking with this random guy from Israel I'd met like a week beforehand. And I literally had to walk on his ass the whole time through 3 miles of snow, looking in his shadow, and I still got somewhat snow blindness. My eyes were hurting for like a week after the fact. So if you're up in there in the snow, sunglasses are a necessity.
That's a very good answer.
That was really in depth. Like, that made sense. It's like you thought of this before.
I didn't think about it. That's the thing. It's all learning from experience. I didn't know jack shit about hiking in the snow. I'd never done it before the PCT. I learned all this shit. It's just you learn as you go, and you learn from your stupid mistakes, and you don't do that shit again. I'll never slide 300 foot down a mountain again early in the morning, and I'll never break my sunglasses in the dark. I'll hold on to those things for dear life, knowing that I have to go over a snowfield the next day in bright sunlight.
Or you'll bring an extra pair.
You know what all this really starts to relate to? Having a kid.
How so?
Because you don't know what it's going to be like until it just fucking happens.
I told you.
They don't write books on this shit.
They don't write books on it, but you won't know that you'll need an extra pair of diapers or something until there's a fucking shit stain out the back of his back, and you're just like, I used the last one. He took a shit 10 minutes ago. I didn't think I needed a third.
I learned a long time ago on kid number 1, I was like, I've learned that if I think that I need one of these things, I'm going to bring 3.
Exactly.
Because no shit, I had my son at the Kansas City Zoo when he was about 2 years old, 1, 2, and he blew out 3 diapers. Like, he blew out 3 diapers because he was still potty trained, like working on potty training, and I put a diaper on him, slid one on him. He blew out through 2 diapers and a pair of underwear. He was with me by myself.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, I fucked up.
And I don't know if this is you'll be able to answer this for me. And so when I worked at that hiking outfit I told you in Georgia, it's right on the Appalachian Trail. It's the first outfitter you come to, so it's a lot of noobs that are coming through as a through hiker, and they don't know jack shit. Like,
I love how he calls them noobs.
Above their head, like they see the movies and they got all this shit hanging off their pack. They don't know anything. So what my job with that outfitter was to sit them down with their gear and say, all right, you don't need this shit. You don't need this shit. You don't need this shit. And
then hear them bitches. They tell you why they need it.
Oh, I need this. I need this. I need
No, you
this.
don't. The less weight you have, the better.
What? Yeah. And when you're hooking up these mountains, you don't give a shit about your third, whatever the fuck you're carrying. And I noticed this a lot with the military guys. And I don't know if this is part of your training or not, but redundancy was key. So I saw a lot of guys I'd sit down that were ex-military that had 3 ways to start a fire, 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this. And they would refuse to give it up. They said, I need this in case this fails. I need this as a backup.
Yeah.
In certain scenarios, that's 100%, especially if you're out in the middle of a survival situation. Yeah, that is important. But on the Appalachian Trail, when you're never more than like 4 days away from town, you'll be all right, dude. It's like walk 3 days and you'll be able to get a new one. It's not that big of a deal. I noticed that with guys. Until you start hiking, you learn like weight is everything. By the time you get to mile 400, you're not going to give a shit about that extra lighter or whatever it is. You're going to give a shit about an extra Snickers bar because your body's burning 6,000 fucking calories a day, and you're going to want to carry 3 more Snickers bars, and that's food is king out there. So
it's kind of how you learn to plan in the military, I guess, from like a higher level, like a battalion level plan. Those guys that come out, they go, what's the most dangerous thing they could have? Like most dangerous, least dangerous course of action. Like what are those things? You go, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most like death, and 1 being I've just stubbed my toe on the side of a tree. What is the likelihood that I will need this thing? All right, cool. What is the likelihood that I'll need 2 of these things? Okay, if it's like a 3, you're like, okay, then I should have 2 of them. You're like, oh, it's the likelihood that I will go through all 3 of these things. If it's like a 4, or like could aid in me not dying, then you go, I'm gonna keep 3 of these motherfucking things regardless. I don't care if it's. I think I had 3 compasses with me because the lens-added compasses the Army give you are shitty. So I've learned from my past experience in Afghanistan that if I drop one, odds are if it falls on a rock, it's done forever. The whatever's in it breaks. I can't remember the thing. It was something like a little green thing that keeps it kind of lit up at night. It's some radioactive bullshit. But yeah, I went through 2 compasses like that on a 3-week like mission or whatever. I was like, I only have 1 left. Shit, what do I do? And I just held on that thing for dear life. I'm keeping it with me. And I was like, if I could have packed 4, I'd have packed 4. Gotcha. That's kind of why.
That makes sense. Yeah, for sure. I saw a lot of crazy shit too, doing that as a job and seeing what was in people's packs. The craziest one I ever saw was this kid was carrying a crossbow with like a quiver and like 4 arrows on the
Fuck yeah.
I'm like, I sat down with this dude. He's probably 19, 20 years old. I'm like, dude, what are you carrying this crossbow for? He says, protection. I said, protection from fucking what? The people that are hiking around you need protection from your ass carrying this crossbow out there. I sat with this kid for like an hour and a half, finally convinced him to send it home. But you see a lot of crazy shit out there. And there's what's called hiker boxes. You get to a town, people say, I haven't used this thing in a week. I'm just going to toss in a hiker box. It's kind of like take one, leave one, take one. So if
community thing, honor system.
Exactly. You see some crazy shit early on the Appalachian Trail, like road flares and all this crazy shit that people finally realize, I don't need this stuff.
Road flares?
Road flares, yeah, like I said.
You gonna scare a bear off with this?
If you grab a solar charger and you have a flashlight that takes a USB cable or something, charge it on the solar block while you walk. You don't need a flare. You have a light. Ding, ding, ding. Same thing.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, three times. I need help.
Or you just start a fire.
Or you start a fire, yeah. And then the AT is like a lot of the reason why people do that as their first trail is very hiker friendly. Like I said, you're never more than like 4 days away from town. You're never more than like a half hour away from another hiker. So if shit were to hit the fan, you're going to have help just there like that. The longest stretch I've ever done was 9 days through the Sierra in California. And you kind of got to know what the fuck you're doing when you're out there for 9 days in the snow. That's a different situation. But the AT is so hiker friendly. You see dudes. There was a dude I watched. I saw him here and there as I was going far north. The fucker was wearing a Santa costume. Like, this is the kind of crowd you see out there. It's weird ass fucking people. Dude wore a Santa costume the whole goddamn time. So you're not ever in a life or death situation unless you get bit by a rattlesnake or something like that.
I will say it does take a certain type of person to want to do what you do, but then it takes a different type of person to think they can do what you do and also try to have fun with it.
So here's the thing that you can read all the statistics. They consistently there's the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, the ATC, that keeps track of these stats year in and year out. They've been doing it for years and years, so they got a pretty good idea of what the failure rate of these trails is. And pretty consistently year to year, it's 80-20. 80% fail the attempt to through hike, 20% make it. So a lot of people go out there, and I think social media is a lot to blame with this. And I try to show the bad side of through hiking too, because people on social media will typically see the beautiful horizon sunsets and the dancing through the tulips and all this shit. Yes, that's part of through hiking. That's the main reason I do it, because it's beautiful out there. But there's a side of through hiking that you don't see a hell of a lot on social media. Hence my hand bleeding like a stuck pig. you got blisters up the ass, your ass is chafing. My nutsack was bloody for like 3 weeks, chafing. It's just, you don't see that shit on social media. So I think a lot of people see these Instagram posts and are like, oh, I want to go out there and hike from Georgia to Maine. And then they get out there and they're like, what the fuck? I've been putting on wet underwear for the 5th day in a row. Like, what the fuck?
A lot of people don't know how to do the little things. Like a few things I learned, like if you take care of your feet, you're good. Mm-hmm. Like we were in ranger school and it was winter. So you weren't really wet, but you would get wet occasionally, but your feet got wet. They would sweat. And they tell you every night, whenever you're off of like security, you need to take your boots off, take your insoles out and leave them in your boots, but like hang them out so it dried a little bit. Take your socks down to, if you don't want to take them off your toes, take them down past your heels, just anything to get dry. And people did not understand that we had more people get like recycled out of our class from foot injuries and anything else. Rolled ankles because they got shitty boots. They get fungal infections all over their feet. They get blisters and their feet rip open and start bleeding. They can't walk. Like very, very small things are like, hey, did you've worn those underwear for 2 days. You need to take them off, take your water, wet them, bring them out, let them dry close to your body in your sleeping bag. Like things like that.
It sounds easy, but it's people, they don't think about that shit. And I was notorious for being we call them hiker trash, like dirty motherfuckers on the trail. I would get showers in town because you get dirty the next day. But I will say this: the reason why I haven't had very many blisters on these trails is because I take care of my damn feet. Like you said, every single night I will take my shoes and socks off. I will hang them out to dry. I don't get in my sleeping bag until my feet are dry every single night, and that has a lot to do with why my feet hold up. It's a simple thing, but it's an important thing that people don't take into consideration. And like I said, once your feet gets fucked, you're not doing any walking.
Have you thought about going and like taking people mountaineering or like hiking, just doing that? Have you ever done that? Do you want to do that?
That takes a special type of person.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an introvert for one thing. Like
so that's a no.
I hike these trails by myself for a reason. I get annoyed by people out there. I'm out there to be in touch with nature, all this hippie shit. I want to be by myself. I don't want some person yapping in my ear the whole time and trying to look at this beautiful sunrise or whatever. There are occasions I've hiked with people for safety purposes. When my life could be in danger, I'll swallow my pride there and hike with somebody, but I'm out there to be by myself. So if I was to take a crew of people out there hiking, I think I would just get annoyed as shit.
Dude, no, I think
he does not seem quite like the guy who wants to put up with the patience of Instagram vloggers and shit that are out there like just take me to the top of the mountain so I can get the picture and then I'm gonna come right back down. Now if I'm getting paid to do that, I'll take the money. Fuck it. I'll show you the goddamn tree to take the picture from.
YouTube doesn't pay shit, but it's enough that I can do it by myself and make a decent half the year's living doing it. I just can't do with people, man. There's a reason I go out there by myself for 6 months at a time because I need that solitude.
Have you thought about doing what's the app called? It's not YouTube. A bunch of people are putting their videos on it now, and it's like behind a paywall.
Oh, Patreon?
Yes. Have you thought about doing that?
Yes, Patreon.
Do that. I have a Patreon account.
Okay.
I do shit on there, and I tell my followers that I put out a daily vlog every day on YouTube, and a lot of people that follow me understand how much work goes into it. Like I'm the asshole out there with like 3 lenses and a drone, and I'm setting up all these camera shots. When you're hiking 30 miles in a day, and I set up the camera and walk past the fucking thing and go back for the camera, I do that 15, 20 times a day. So it adds to walking to my hike. It's a lot of fucking work. Plus I edit every video in my tent every single night so I can put out a daily video. So yes, Patreon, that helps. And a lot of people will send me resupply boxes while I'm on these trails. I'll say, hey, I'll be in so-and-so town in a week. Cool. I'll send you a box of food. I'll be waiting there for you. So my followers, I probably couldn't do these trails year in and year out because it does cost money to do it. Food,
that's incredible.
Plane flights. So Patreon does go a long way.
So those people who are so generous to do stuff like that, I feel like there's a lot of people who do like podcasts and vlogs and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to say like they're blind followers or something, but there are people who are super passionate about this kind of stuff where they will literally help a complete stranger just for almost the entertainment purpose of like, hey, if I can shed $50 and it gives you food, or it gives this person some ability to go buy a new camera or do something. It's interesting how the content that is created now, where I'm not saying those people necessarily live totally vicariously through what you're doing, but some of them may even
I found this on the
something
website.
like that. And that's interesting to me, that people would go out and spend money, send you something, and do a completely different town. I'm assuming it's to like a local mailbox or something like that. And then you just wander in and you can just go pick up something that somebody was generously able to give you. Do you know any of these people? Do you kind of become friends with them, or like what is their affiliation with what you do?
Yeah, for sure. When this in 2018, when I did the AT first, my YouTube channel was very small, like 1,000 followers. Nobody really knew who I was, but it grew over time.
Small.
Well, I wasn't making money at it. Let's just say that. As the people started following me and stuff, and I started getting requests like, "Can I send you a box of food?" I used to feel guilty, and I didn't understand it at first. I'm like, why would a complete stranger want to send me a box of food? It just didn't make sense. As I've done this year in and year out, I start to develop, relationships with these people that have been following me for 5 years. And the way they explain it to me is, a lot of these folks will never do what I do. They'll never hike across the country. I mean, just very few people do it. And it allows them to watch me for 10 minutes a day and live vicariously through what I'm doing. And it gives them, like you said, entertainment. It's almost like watching a Netflix show week in and week out. You want to know what happens to the character. They want to know, is IBTAT going to fall down a fucking mountain this week? What's going to happen? So people get wrapped up on it like they would a Netflix show or something like that. And they become part of it. And yes, I have gotten to know some of these people, especially when I was working at that outfitter. People would come that were going to do a day hike in Georgia and want to take a picture and tell, have them tell a story or something like that. You get to know these people over time. I've even had a couple of subscribers. I have a basset hound that I leave at home when I go do these hikes. I've had subscribers offer to watch my dog when I'm out hiking. So yes, you develop a relationship with these people. So it's a give and take thing. I'm out there busting my ass. My nutsack is chafing, and they're having a good old time on their couch watching my ass hoof up these mountains. So everybody gets something out of it.
Have you ever met up with any one of your fans specifically that, send you stuff like somewhere along your hikes?
I've had some stalkers, let's say, not very many, but I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a dude that followed me for 3 days up in New York. He kept popping up at trailheads. They want to hike with you. They want to camp with you. No.
I wish I had that crossbow now.
Yeah. The females vloggers have it even worse than I do. At least I'm an ugly son of a bitch, and I don't, but you get a good looking female out there putting videos out. I tell them straight up, do not let people know exactly where you're at. You need to delay these videos because you're going to have some crazy fucking people out there. They're going to meet you at so-and-so trailhead and shit's going to happen. So yeah, you do have to be careful. There's some weirdos out there. I've had some weird hitchhike situations and things like that too. Going back to, I'm scared of mostly of people out there because you just never know when you come across some weird ass fuckers out there on the Appalachian Trail or whatever.
Well, especially once you get into the Virginias and, I'm not saying anything,
man. Southern California, I met some weird ass fucking people out there. There was this one chick that picked me up. She was an older lady. She's probably in her 60s or something like that. I was hitchhiking down this road. I got to this road crossing. It was like a 20-mile walk if I was going to walk the highway into town. So I had to hitch. It was like 100 degrees outside. I was out low on water. I'm sticking my thumb in the air. I waited 2 hours. I don't give a shit who picks me up. Somebody picked me up. This crazy woman finally came after 2 hours. And on the way to town, she was like, "Hey, I know this hot springs that's out in the middle of so-and-so nowhere. You want to go hang out there with me and my buddies, and we're all smoking meth and all this shit?" It's like,
what?
Stay the fuck away from me. I'll walk it the 20 miles into town. You meet people like that. It's just, you have to keep your guard up for sure.
We're going to go smoke meth. That's the infamous last. It was like, hey, when I come out, buddies, go smoke meth. I'm good.
I'm good.
Well, that southern part of California will do that to you.
I thought New Mexico was going to be rough, especially because I was late to the Breaking Bad scene, so I didn't watch it till late, right before I hit the CDT. So in my head, I had this whole picture like, I'm going to come up on this fucking RV in the middle of the desert, and I'm going to get shot the fuck up. And
the cartel's going to get me.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I was paranoid starting the PCT you start right at the Mexican border, right at the wall there. And I was freaking out about it. Because when I got there was military helicopters flying around and stuff. Yeah. And I'm noob there. I'm walking right up to the wall to start the hike, and this border patrol came up behind me in this truck, and he rolled down his window. He's like starting to grill me with all these questions, like, "What are you doing out here? You know, blah blah blah. Where are you from? How, you know, all this shit." I'm freaking out. I'm like shaking. And then after like a minute or so of all these interrogation questions, he says, "I'm just fucking with you. Get in the truck. I'll take you to the trailhead." He probably did that with every fucking hiker, just messing with their heads. I thought I was going to jail.
No, well, especially I'm not taking that right. I'm not.
If it's an experienced hiker, they're
this
probably
guy's got a fucking like AK on his back. I don't know what the hell he's doing. You know.
Do you ever see any of those people out there that like are self-proclaimed, whatchamacallit, border agents or whatever? Like they're just like local ranchers or people out there that just kind of patrol the area. Have you ever seen any of those?
No, I'm sure there's a lot of vigilantism that goes on. Some of those podunk. You go through, like I said, on the CDT, you go through a lot of private ranching property. Yeah. And these guys are out there, they're protecting their land like it's the Wild West. They don't give a shit. But I've never had a scary situation with a landowner, really. I've had one guy ask me to pack up and move because I was like camping on the border of his property. I wasn't quite on his property, but I was close enough to where he's like, "I don't want this fucker out here." So he came out there and asked me to pack up and leave. But yeah, some of those guys, that's their whole life, and they'll defend their land till the end of time. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you could imagine. I've heard at least a lot of stories down here in Texas where they'll have people who are hiking or who are doing like long trails, and they can't differentiate them from like coyotes trying to bring people through like local ranches without going near any towns. Once you get up here towards like San Antonio, it's a little different, but like the southern portion is just far enough that like anybody coming through, they'll push them just far enough north that they won't ship them back down to the border. So
gotcha.
I can definitely see where those guys are going to come out and kind of be like, "Hey, you know, I don't want to shoot you, but
yeah,
can you move?"
I'm sure it's happened to somebody out there hiking, and I never had a story like that. I guess I was pretty lucky, but yeah, El Paso, Texas, that's the closest town I flew into to start the CDT. That whole area it's sketch as fuck, and
yeah,
you're out there.
Fort Bliss is where you were at. You were close to Fort Bliss, and then Juarez is a trip down the street.
Yeah, and where the CDT starts, there's not even a wall; it's just a barbed wire fence. You could literally piss over it. So. Yeah, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you keep your guard up. That's watching the whole Breaking Bad thing. I had that in my back of my head. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it out of New Mexico, man.
That's wild.
That's not the worst part I could think of. I mean, I get what he's saying. If you're somebody who doesn't carry any type of like weapon while you're out there, not even the Breaking Bad situation. For me, it's just if you have to be somebody who then sees something happen to like somebody else,
sure,
because you're going to want to do something. Yeah. But then if you're like, well, I'm 3 days from the nearest town, I just saw that happen.
Yeah.
Where do I go from here?
There's a lot of places to bury a body out there.
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of places in Colorado to bury a body. You go to the top of a mountain, you won't get caught.
I mean,
you also don't have to bury the body up there. You just have to drop it.
I lived in Corpus Christi, Texas for 2 years. And when I first moved down there, I didn't know how bad the drug trade was through Corpus Christi. And they have the banditos down there. And I've seen those guys pull dudes out of their trucks in broad daylight and beat the shit out of them. Man, they're no joke. And I had a scary situation. As soon as I moved down to Corpus, I went to this barbecue joint on the coast there. It was like a biker bar, barbecue joint, whatever. Unbeknownst to me, it was being run by the Mexican mafia out the back door, right? And I was hitting on this hot little senorita that was sitting next to on the bar next to me. I'd buy her a shot of tequila, whatever. I'm like, all right, this is cool. My first week in Texas, I'm gonna meet this hot chick. Turned out she was one of their women, and I was looking at the bartender, right, and he's like staring through me, like his dead eyes. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy staring at me for? He goes like this, like, look around behind you. I turn around, there's 3 bikers standing behind me, like, you have 3.5 seconds to get the fuck out of here. And I never went back. But,
you were like, yeah, cool, I'll leave.
I don't fuck with that shit, man.
I can't write down my phone number that fast.
No, man. Corpus, I was not a fan of.
I learned
Corpus is also
if it costs you your piece, it's too expensive.
Yeah,
that's true.
Way too expensive.
That's not a price worth paying.
No, not at all. No, not there.
So
I
would
gotta
you?
pee, guys. I gotta pee. If you want to finish this, Steve, you can finish it. I really gotta pee. I've been holding it for 35 minutes, sir.
God, Jesus.
I'd rather do.
You keep going. Do what you gotta do. I'm gonna go pee. I'll edit this whole part out because
Are you coming back?
Am I coming back? Probably not because I gotta finish working out.
Oh, jeez, Louise. All right, well then let's wrap it up together then.
No. Let him. Oh, good Jesus. Okay, fine.
Because
No.
hey, I have the sleeping kid here who, by the way, I apologize. That was the longest he has ever fussed, and he wouldn't shut the fuck up if it wasn't for me holding him.
It's all good. I got a dog who does the same thing from time to
Yeah,
time.
my dog does that too. She'll look at me and she wants to do something. She'll like start yelling at me and then get in my face like this and she yells.
Exactly.
So I'm like,
well, we'll get out of here. We can hop on again some other time, maybe after one of your next hikes, and then we'll try to help you. If you'd like, we can try to help push one of your videos or something, some content that you're looking to do. So let us know the next time you finish like one of these big trails. We'll get you back on here again, and then we can go through like your whole video once you get it published.
Sounds good, man. I'm heading to Sweden second week of August. That hike will probably take me about 30 days, and I'll be back like late September. So we can talk about that then.
How long did the western side, the California to Washington, how long did that take you?
So the AT took me 6 months. The Pacific Crest Trail from Mexico to Canada through California, Oregon, and Washington, that took me 6 months and a week. And then the Continental Divide from New Mexico to Canada took me just under 6 months.
So just for reference for everybody, that's 2/3 of a deployment that he spent walking through states. And then now he's going to walk through a country in 1 month. Granted, it's much smaller than
270 miles through northern Sweden. It'll be just a short jaunt for me. It'll be all right.
All right. Well, man, I think we both can say we appreciate you being on. If there's anything else you want to tell the listeners, you want to give them anything where they can find you, what's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to send you some stuff?
Yeah, sure. YouTube, just check me out on IBTAT, IBTAT. I've got all my hikes and playlists. You can watch me walk every single day on all these trails. And then my Instagram, lately I've been taking wildlife photos, but I've got plenty of photos from all these trails on my Instagram, which is Saved by Mountains.
Sweet. And if they wanted to send you something while you're out on one of those trails, just DM you?
Just send me a DM on Instagram. It's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Yep.
All right. Well, sweet. Maybe we could send him a pair of Gooder shades, Ken.
We can send him shades. Yeah, we'll send you shades. Shoot us your address.
Or the one in Sweden. That way,
actually, I live down the street from you. I could just drive to Estes Park and drop them off at your front doorstep.
I'll be here, man. I'll go show you where the elk are at.
Oh yeah, DM me your address and I'll take 2 boxes and drop them at your front door and be like, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Sounds good, dude.
All right, well, man, we will see you later. Talk to you soon, Jeff, and have fun over there in Europe.
All right, appreciate it.
Best of luck. Take it easy.